So is there supposed to be a delay in it then? Some kind?
I'm not entirely sure. Seems like there's like a waiting
It's
lobby now.
It's quite a delay. We're discussing the new YouTube technology, whatever it is. Yeah, if I move my hand, nothing happens.
I think normally you watch.
My digital hand does not move.
I think you said
Oh, that's better. I feel so much better. Interesting, that's what I'm going to be talking about. Digital, analog. You know the old radios, you have to tune them in, and then the digital one, you just punch a button. The clock hand moves around slowly with mechanical springs and gears and so on. And the quartz situation is digitally is keeping track of things in a different way. It's supposed to be more accurate, of course. So the title that I gave it was what?
No smartphone meditation.
No. Let's start with the no part. That's N-O, not K-N-O-W. Did I say W? I meant W. K-N-O-W. N-O, smartphone meditation. What am I saying? I'm not saying you can't have a smartphone. I'm saying please, and I want you to ask questions about this as soon as I get through with my thing. Smartphones are smart, they're very good, they're great, but I'm sure you've noticed that when you go into a smartphone and you try to type something in, it'll tell you what it thinks you meant. It'll change your words. Have you noticed that? Sometimes it'll wait until you just get, like it has a sensor that looks out and sees your finger coming towards the send, and it changes the word pomegranate into cabbage. And then you've got to tell your friend you didn't mean to call them a cabbage, you meant to call them a pomegranate. So you know how that goes. But I'm just saying that the internet is technology, Instagram, Facebook, voice-to-text situation, the technology's all over the place. It's getting more and more dense, and it's getting a little bit more difficult. So I'm here to suggest to you, of course you can do whatever you want. I'm not going to track anybody down. But don't use smartphones. I wish I would have brought it out with me. Don't use your smartphone to thank you, I'll use yours. Smartphone. Don't use your smartphone to do anything other than call somebody, text somebody, use it in the conventional way. Be very careful what you do with this situation, because AI, artificial intelligence, is getting more and more powerful. And the more you start to rely on this, the more it's going to start to rely on you for its purpose. There you go. So I say, all these meditation apps and everything are not good. Don't do it, because it's not that they're so bad right now, this month, which is March 2019, but it's going to get more and more invasive. They're very, very nosy. And they've got ways already to look into things that are happening. I wouldn't be surprised if they already know what your heart rate is, what your body temperature is. They're already detecting those kinds of things. And for sure, there are apps already that will tell you whether you're whether alpha waves or beta waves or theta waves. And I'm not saying there isn't value there. Of course there's value there, but don't let it get out of your hands. Don't sit down and have a smartphone start telling you how good your meditation is. Because their motivation is not to help you attain enlightenment or to become sane or clear. Their motivation is to make money, and what's the next one? Control you. May sound like I'm a little paranoid. Probably I am. I've been around a while. So I've been controlled by lots of things. I was controlled for 4 years in the Marine Corps. So I know what that's about. And we're all being controlled by all kinds of things. So it's not so much about getting away from the control, it's when you're unaware that that's what's happening. So don't use digital situations, digitally controlled situations. Use the analog, use the analogy. This is great software. Or is that hardware? Sounds kind of hard. Use this. Be part, make the situation that where you're practicing meditation part of your life. I'm sure you've noticed, not older people also, but also younger people will spend literally hours looking at a screen and their whole life is going into this situation because it is entertaining and it makes money and it means that you don't have to take care of your child. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. When I had young people that we call children, I put them in front of the TV as much as I could so I could do something else because they're time consuming. Am I correct? Am I correct?
Yes.
Very time consuming, and they should be. So, analog. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't use, but make sure when you're using the phone, using the computer, using them, make sure that you're in and metaphor would be the driver's seat. You know, you're the one who's deciding what's going to happen. This kind of showed up for me. I'm diabetic and I had one of these, was it Libre? Patch thing on there where you can just take, instead of poking your finger, you can take this little machine and push the button and put it there and it gives you a readout without poking yourself at all. There's one poke for every 14 days, I think. So, and then I saw on the Libre ad that you could also use your smartphone to do that. And I'm not going to have smartphone start taking readings off my body, because that smartphone is connected to all the people who are making money and competing with each other. Again, not so much about the paranoia part of it. There's some of that's going to go on no matter what. If you've read 1984 by George Orwell, you see that Big Brother is even worse than he portrayed it back then. So again, it's about being aware of that situation. And so when we do meditation practice, don't depend on a smartphone or any technology to tell you about your consciousness. It's gonna get difficult. It's gonna be very difficult to keep your distance from that kind of technology. Already have face recognition software. Eventually, they're going to be able to actually read your moods if you have, because they'll be able to read so much. They'll be able to read whether you're in a good mood or a bad mood, or and be able to tell if you're temperamental. It's going to go that way. I'm not just a science fiction writer here. So I would say, enjoy your life. Reach for the striker. If you have a large gong, or if you have a small gong like this one, you can use a small one. You can use here. You can use a water glass. Begin meditation. 4 hours later, end meditation. And you are the one who decided. And also, when you're doing sitting meditation, you are the one that's working with the consciousness, not some piece of machinery that is telling you, oh, you were in an alpha state. Oh, I see, now you went down into theta. Now that means this and this and this. Looking at your, how many hertz, or kilohertz your mind brain waves are functioning at. I think it's quite funny. They take the scientists take His Holiness Dalai Lama has lots of monks, and they go and ask him, "Can we hook these guys up to wires and everything?" Yeah, well, sure, go ahead. And he hooks them all up, and then they tell them what they already know. Very interesting for science to do that. Materialism is great, but it needs to mind its own business. It needs to do what it does with materiality. Transcendent realm, the spiritual realm, this realm of consciousness, the very consciousness that is there when I say big red balloon. Your consciousness immediately manufactured, created, or made room for that big red balloon. Whether you're approaching that in your own particular mind stream, your own particular matrix thinking process. You either visualize that immediately, or you had just saw the word, or you felt the word, or you heard the word, but somehow my saying that immediately shows up in your awareness. This awareness that's showing up there is not going anywhere. Even if the body-mind goes down or goes back into the elements. I'm not saying it won't be different, but it can't be destroyed. I'm not talking about just consciousness. I'm just talking about the foundation of consciousness. So, when you sit down, analog, be a ticking clock, be a second-hand movie. You sit down and be with whatever's happening. Take your time. And sit. 4 hours later, that's block sitting. You should sit for 4 hours once every couple of weeks. But if you're only sitting for 40 minutes or 35 minutes, the same thing. Analog. Do it. Actually do it yourself. Have the experience of having something and striking that object yourself, rather than punching your clock and having your smartphone tell you time to sit, and then perhaps playing music for you so it's a little bit easier. Questions?
Not too long ago, I saw an advertisement for a piece of technology that you put around your head.
Yes.
And it reads your brain waves, and it says in the advertisement that it takes the question of, am I doing this right, out of your meditation practice. Mm-hmm. How is the tension or the polarity of, am I doing this right, helpful for our practice?
That piece of machinery is crap from the point of view of meditation, from the point of view of awareness practice. It's just something to make money with. And they said, and since people, when you meditate, it's very difficult to meditate. It's very difficult to meditate without a teacher. Just about impossible to do this without somebody who knows what this is about, because the tendency to go off into what we call, or what my teacher called, spiritual materialism, or getting somewhere, climbing something, getting better, higher, more perfect, more peaceful, more aware, using spiritual techniques. It's not about getting better. And if you think it is, then, and you have a teacher, you should go and talk to your teacher a little bit about it. Because if the teaching person is encouraging you to get better, get less this and more that, this is very, very fishy. No offense to the Pisces in the room. It's fishy, it's sneaky, and they're trying to control something. So the situation that you're talking about, this is a, and I'm not saying they can't do that. I'm not saying that they can't check your brain waves and so on. But what they're doing is they're taking the one that they call the meditation area, which is, anybody know, is that theta?
It's probably alpha.
Pardon me?
It's probably alpha waves.
Alpha. It's not theta, it's...
Delta.
Delta.
Delta's.
Is it delta? Well,
Sleep.
there's more, but I'm just saying, I don't know, but I'm just saying that to take an arbitrary thing just because you're complying or aligning yourself with a particular standard that's being set up by someone who doesn't even know what the mind is. They don't even know what a thought is, even though they use them all the time. But they don't know, they know what they do, but they don't know what they are. And if you rely on that kind of thing, it's not that that couldn't be helpful in some way, but don't turn the whole shebang over to them. So there suddenly you're getting all of your information about whether you're doing well or whether you're in samadhi or whether you're about to attain enlightenment through some smartphone app that somebody's developed somewhere who's probably never meditated before in their life. Again, it's not wrong. I'm not saying this is a bad, evil, terrible thing. I'm just saying that the way it shows up here, it is very, very subject to the manipulations of crazy people. When I say crazy, I mean that with all due respect to people who are out of their mind. I'm saying people that are really out of their mind don't know it. The people who know that things are confusing or chaotic, these people are actually sane on a certain level, because you're aware of your insanity, you're aware of the craziness, you're aware of the discontinuity that's happening in your mind. This is very, very important. This is a path to understanding goes through very, very difficult and dark channels. And this app, if I may say it this way, and I don't know for sure, but this app will actually have you avoid all of that meditation would take you down into that particular difficult matrix called your particular form of confusion, passion, aggression, ignorance. If you want to avoid that, then just don't meditate. Or if you want to avoid that, then get an app, because it will take you right away from the very thing you need to look at. The Buddha did not awaken to some kind of blissful alpha state or echo state or whatever other. He didn't awaken to that. He awoke to intense suffering and confusion. The first noble truth of the Buddha is life is suffering. He was not exaggerating. And there again, I don't mean to say that we need to throw the technology out the door, the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. But we need to use it in a way that we understand what it is, so that we work with that, so that we communicate with that kind of material. It's not that we couldn't at some point use something like that, but right now it's in the hands of corporations, and not a good idea. If you've noticed what corporations have been ignoring, I mean, I'm not even going to go there. Some of my students will get upset with me for being political. Yes?
Is there even a place for that question, am I doing meditation right?
That's ridiculous. Because what is the thing? The idea there is that there's a right and a wrong to meditation. There's only your meditation. There's no right, there's no wrong. There isn't a person in here that's a student of mine that has ever told me that they're doing, that I've ever told they're doing meditation wrong. That I know of. Well, that's wrong. Oh, now you're doing meditation right. More?
It's just a question that comes up on occasion, especially people that aren't here on a regular basis. So if they're, and you've given a formula before, a very short one, as I understand it. Are you holding very still? Are all your senses open?
So yes, and that's about the technique. That's about what you do. Sit down. Are you holding still? Check. Are you have your eyes open? Check. Are you endeavoring, which is a kind of a fancy word for trying to do something? Are you endeavoring to just observe what moves? Check. Then whatever happens after that is none of your business. Don't meddle with things you don't understand, which is starting with your own mind. Don't meddle with your mind. If we were separate beings, you could meddle all you want. You could go in there and stick your finger right behind your eyeball and flip things around and say, oh, the happy button. Finally got the pineal gland. I went in there and I just covered the pineal gland with sugar coating. So I'm being silly, but I'm just saying that when I say it's none of your business, I'm saying the ego mind thinks it owns stuff, and it thinks it believes in territoriality, and it believes in division, and it believes, and it believes in protecting itself, and it believes in advancing itself. And if you insult someone and they get upset, this is the ego. If they don't get upset, then maybe you've got a person who might be might have some sanity going on there. So when I say none of your business, I'm endeavoring to give you a way to stop believing your thought patterns and disbelieving your thought patterns. If you believe something, you're going to spin. If you disbelieve something, you're going to spin the other way. And if you shut down on it, then it's really got you by the throat. Or if you ignore it. I don't know how to teach this any better out of language. The best way to teach this is for me to say, please go train your mind. Don't live another day, another week, another year, another lifetime without training this, because if you don't train it, then no matter how safe you feel, you're at the mercy of your karma and all the karma of all the people who are around you, all the causes and conditions that are arising as your culture, your territory, your race, your belief system, however you want to say it. You're at the mercy of that. Liberation is not about getting out of something and getting away from something. Liberation is about seeing that everything is what? What the Buddha said 2,500 years ago. Everything is dependently arisen. If you see that everything is dependently arisen, that there's no solid separate being there or here or anywhere, then you begin to function out of just the bare attention that is arising or that is accommodating all of the things that arise in all of your sensorium, all of your sense fields. No longer threatened by anything. Shoto.
Even outside of the apps, I recall you recommending that we don't even use like a timer for
Yeah.
ending meditation. Is there a difference between a timer like that and having someone else like the Doan strike at a certain time?
Yeah, the Doan's a human being. The timer is a piece of machinery. So you need a little bit. In ancient times, they would use the incense would burn down. They would use that as a timer. So it's always some kind of an analog or some kind of an analogy to the movement in time. You know, if you've ever seen what do they call those things that sit out in the sun with it? Huh?
Sundial.
Sundial? Yeah, sundial. It's has a little wing that sticks up and the shadow moves across there, and it's really difficult for people who have dyslexia to read. I'm just having some dyslexia. Go ahead.
What help is that human involvement with the Doan compared to the phone?
Because if you have a timer going off, and I'm not saying that you couldn't have some kind of a timer that would keep track of the time for you, but I think it's a little better if you're in here, this is a community, this is a sangha, you're in here, and you also, even though you have that timer or that person striking a gong, it's just a matter of convenience, and it's a matter of everyone participating in the same form. It's called sangha. Buddha Dharma Sangha is called community. So that's why we do this all together. Have you noticed how much easier it is to sit with other people sitting and with someone keeping time than it is to sit in your own building or your own house or living room? But it's good to have a strong container for this. We don't do anything in this monastery but meditate and study the Dharma and eat stuff occasionally. So it's about participating, being part of it, being embodied, striking the gong, the timer, or the water glass, whatever. It just needs to be a sound rather than a thought about I'm going to meditate. The 6 sense fields are not separate from the thinking process. Just looks like it. Further question? Did I see another question? Yokodo.
So when you're sitting at home on your own and you want to sit, say, for a couple hours, but you don't have a timer, then I find myself I keep looking at my watch.
It's fine. You could also, what would be the big problem if you sat beyond that? That'd be, I mean, if you actually have an appointment to make, then maybe you should set your alarm and put it somewhere. But if you're just saying, I want to make sure I don't sit more than 2 hours, I want to overdo this. So, but you could, the way I would do it is myself, I just have a wristwatch and set it aside, or if it was a clock, I put it off to one side. And if you are practicing on your own very much, eventually you know how much time has gone by. You look at the clock and it's like 1 minute to. How many times have we all done that? It's very common. Something about time is there, and I would say use that timer rather than the smartphone. And it's, as I said, I think earlier, it's not that the smartphone is so difficult right now, but it's moving that way within the next few years. And if you're getting yourself accustomed to using it all the time, eventually it's going to be looking at you, and it's going to be evaluating you, and it's going to be feeding you information that you like to hear, and then you'll have to pay money and so on. It's not so good. And I know there's all kinds of apps and all kinds of people that are doing this, and we've all probably had the experience of being on Facebook and trying to do some simple thing like communicate with somebody, and had all kinds of ads and all kinds of things come up. All you have to do is ask one question on the internet, and suddenly you get all kinds of ads about that, like somebody's reading your mail. Well, they probably are. Big corporations, Google, Facebook, they're probably going to shut us down. But all I'm saying is we want to use that, but let's make sure that we're aware enough around that it's not using us and taking advantage of our wish to feel better, or our second noble truth, wanting things to be different than they are. Someone who is clear, someone who is awake, someone who is, use the fancy word, enlightened, or someone who realizes what this is deeply, fundamentally, doesn't want anything. They don't even care if they die. I'm not saying they're some kind of nihilist that, yeah, go ahead and kill me, I'll stop eating. I'm not saying overboard thing, but they're not really, their priorities are not about some kind of control situation going on. Whatever's happening, they're with that. If it's a difficult thing, then it's the best they can, they dance with it. And if it's a great, fun, happy, celebratory thing, they party. They can actually be with whatever's happening without any demand. If the party starts up and suddenly it comes to an end, they're there. The party's over. They might not even say that. Whatever is happening is perfect. This is what Longchenpa is talking about in the Dzogchen teachings, the great perfection. He even says, and people always kind of blink and look at me when they read this, you don't even have to meditate. Sokuzan wants us to meditate all the time. Well, in order to know that you don't have to meditate, you might have to meditate a lot to see that it's not about the meditation. It's not about meditating to get somewhere. That's what he's talking about there. And it is perfect. It's completely perfect. There's nothing to correct anywhere. If you realize that, then you really understand the deep, deep distress and pain and suffering that's going on in the world that causes everyone to be in so much conflict. Whole countries, nations, people buy into some kind of a savior principle, and the next thing they know, they look up to somebody who is quite self-centered. Yes.
Could avoiding something like an app like that be a way for the ego to grasp onto control itself?
No. Ego's unreal. You think too much. Knock it off. Squirrel cage mind. No, without the squirrel. With no squirrel, that wheel won't turn. So see if that squirrel's real. See if that is really somebody that needs something else. Find out.
So who's being controlled with the app or something?
Pardon me?
Who's being controlled with an app?
Who's being controlled? It works both ways. The one who's using it is being controlled because they think they're controlling you, and the one who is being controlled because they think they're free. Did you follow me? Can you paraphrase what I said? Because if you can't, you didn't understand me. Or else you have a bad memory. You okay, Shannon? Okay. Yes.
You were talking about anytime we use technology to make sure we're the ones in control.
Yeah.
It seems that anytime I go on my phone, I'm immediately sucked in and I kind of lose track of anything else that's going on. How can I bring more awareness or control into that?
What's the motivation for even opening up your phone? What's the motivation? First thought, best thought. First, motivation. Entertainment?
Distraction.
Yeah, okay. Then be aware of the distraction as you do it. Don't stop doing it, but use that as a Dharma gate. Use that as a way to understand more how your mind is working. So if you're going on there in order to help somebody, it'll feel much different. If you're going on there because you're doing this for someone, it doesn't have to be some kind of altruistic situation, but going on because of something like you do tutoring, so you're helping people. So that's a different kind of dynamic. You might not even want to do that. So I think motivation or intention is pretty important about anytime you make any move for something else to go another direction. Just you don't have to stop doing it. That we don't want to necessarily be over control. We're not trying to appear like we're disciplined. Quite often the ego will say, what can I do that will make it look like I'm sane, make it look like I'm disciplined, make it look like I'm know stuff.
You asked if we could paraphrase what you said, and if we couldn't, we either have a bad memory or we didn't understand.
I did say that.
If we think we understand what you're saying, is that suspect?
Sure. No way you can. I never make sense. There's no way I can make sense in a conventional kind of way that makes sense. Or otherwise, I would be teaching something that's a mundane path. I'm not teaching a mundane path. It has a mundane aspect to it. Walls, floor, cushions, costumes that remind us of what we're here to do. Yes.
If we're confused about what you're saying, or we can't understand it, are we receiving the teachings?
You're in the room. You want a further answer than that? You asked me a question.
Do we receive the teaching just by being here?
Yes. You receive the teachings by sitting down, holding still, and looking at your mind. Sit down, hold still, look at the wall, what shows up when everything slows down, you're not doing much, and you've started your meditation, either the Doan or the timekeeper, or you have. That's when you begin to see how that mind works. Slow way down. Hold very still without being rigid. If your back starts to hurt, flex your back a little bit, which your back does hurt sometimes. It's not macho. You don't have to push yourself. Discipline is not about any kind of force. Discipline is totally at rest. So just rest. And that might include moving because of a pain or something like that. And then go out. You're not indulging it. It's your body. Pay attention to your body. Don't hold your body still through a period of pain. Not a good idea, even though the Japanese people might think so. Not all of them, but some of them. Kind of a macho approach to meditation. It's incorrect. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying it's incorrect. Go ahead.
If something like pain starts to show up, is it helpful to give it a second to look what's behind the pain label?
You're probably already going to do that, because if that happens, you're already sitting still, and if you know that it's okay to move, if you know from your teacher or from the environment you're in, if you know it's okay to get up and leave the room if you're in pain. There are people that don't even come to meditation because they're having difficulty. I don't question them. I trust. We have adults here, not children. Not that adults don't sometimes act childish, but if you're already in this situation, you're probably pretty serious about this, and then you have your own body-mind complex to include in that, and so I have to include that myself, so I can't just expect everybody to, what would you say, toe the line. I trust you to do what you need to do. If you really don't want to be here, you'll probably go somewhere else, but if you're here, then probably your awareness of, if you start to avoid something, or get up and move when you're really not in pain, but you're just bored and don't want to be here anymore, you'll know about that. I don't need to know. More?
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
From Don in Virginia. asks, if we don't meditate to get somewhere, and in parentheses he has spiritual materialism in parentheses, how do we train our mind without an ego giving us a goal?
The ego is always going to give you a goal. It's being aware that the ego is doing that. It's being aware of the ego, not getting rid of the ego. You don't have to get rid of something that's unreal. But if you think that your thought patterns are real, if you believe your thoughts and your emotions, which are even more magnetic, if you believe them, I'm not saying you're not feeling them. I'm not saying you're not thinking them. I'm just saying they are dependently arisen, and if they're dependently arisen, then they are half-truths, if even that much. They're not fundamentally true. The fundamental truth is what we're on a spiritual path. On this one, what you're looking for is what is ultimately true. What's the ultimate value for even being alive as a human being? This is your opportunity. You were born. You didn't decide to be here. At least you probably don't remember doing that. You're here. You're alive. You're eating. You have clothes. You have a job, or else you're retired, or you're whatever you are. This is an opportunity for you to awaken and find out who you are before this whole body-mind collapses, which it will do sooner or later. Maybe sooner, maybe later. I'm kind of astonished I'm still here. Here I am, so I'm going to keep talking. And I would say train your mind. You don't have to be a Buddhist. You don't have to join, you don't have to be a student of mine. I'm not here to promote anything other than train your mind. Find a way to train your mind so you can see, so you don't have to depend on me or anyone else for what your life experience is about, for what this life is about for you. Because eventually this body-mind goes down, and but who you are doesn't go anywhere. If you don't understand that, find out. Nobody told me that. What I was told by my teachers is, keep sitting. And the next time, keep sitting. Well, keep sitting. That was about it. Further questions? Any questions about the smartphone situation? I'd like to at least finish up with that. Any questions about how to work with that? Yes, sir. Is it Adrian?
Yes. I just wanted to kind of recap. I think what I'm getting is being more in the present is better than escaping into the digital world, and feeling out the present and being your truest self rather than escaping.
Too much.
Too much.
Don't think about it.
No.
Don't explain it. Don't give yourself any propaganda. It's better to flop and flop and flop than to prevent your flopping by buying into some kind of, what can I call this? It's in Sanskrit. Bullshit. How's that? Some kind of hocus pocus that the ego will make up in order to make you think that you're somehow getting somewhere and know something. Just flop. Just go ahead and let yourself flop. Don't pick yourself up with some kind of propaganda or some kind of validation, justification. Like, don't ever say be in the present moment. If somebody else says that, don't correct them. I get to correct, but that's because I'm in this room. If we were walking down the road looking for a lost cat, I probably wouldn't correct you. Further questions?
So are you saying there is a middle way with smartphones?
Yeah, we can, not too tight, not too loose. Sure, we can use a smartphone, but just be real conscious of how much you're leaning on that. It's like, I'm sure everyone in here, is there anyone in here who is not on Facebook? Okay. Just 2 people? 3 people? Are you, Jack?
Kind of on and off, pretty much.
Oh, but you're on it.
Well,
I'm kind of on and off too, but I'm on it.
only for relatives.
Okay. So, and I'm not saying that there's a right and a wrong, you should or you shouldn't, but if you are on it, you probably all have thought about just getting out of it, because it's such a labyrinth of social type and so on. It's not that we can you know, stay in touch with people we probably wouldn't stay in touch with. That's kind of the nice part of it. But then there's some kind of an interference that's coming in from the multinationals and so on. So how do you stay in touch? Smoke signals? You have a flip phone?
Probably older than a flip phone.
Huh?
It's not, doesn't even flip. It's
That is old.
yeah.
And Andrew, you're not in that. Do you? Of course, you have a smartphone. Yeah, and you don't have a, but you okay. So I don't. You know, it's the only thing I'm saying. I'm not trying to promote any particular approach to it. I'm not saying you should get off or anything. I said just be aware of what you're doing there with it. I mean, and I have the same situation. I get magnetized into it, and the next thing I know, like you were saying, the time has gone by, and you're looking at this and looking at that. It's very easy. Then there's all these ads in there and so on. But the thing I'm trying to point out here with meditation practice, at least keep that discreet. Keep it away from that material as much as you can, so that your meditation is just like it was done 1,000 years ago. Sit down, hold still, 1,000-year meditation. This is the tradition. Michelle?
What about using it in such a way that you're meditating with others, like through the Zoom?
Yeah, that's different. You're just using, I'm not saying it couldn't get more complicated than that. I mean, somebody might come up on Zoom and I see that your eyes are drooping a little bit. You better open those peepers up. So, I mean, it'll start doing that. Just the way voice to text works right now. I'm sure all of you have noticed that sometimes it thinks you mean this and you don't mean that. It means something else. So I would say, as far as the Zoom thing, which we do with our study periods every day, we use Zoom to connect with people in Canada, in Europe, and all over the place. So yeah, they're great. I just think the ability to connect with others, that's the really strong upside of it. But use that, but be careful of the part where you're relying on the phone to tell you what's happening with you and what frequency your brain waves are at, and validating your meditation, or because it will go further than that. Eventually it'll be telling you about your health, and it's time to go and get a transfusion or something, and it's not that something like that wouldn't be valuable, but let's make sure that we're the ones who give permission for that to happen, rather than it just does it arbitrarily, comes in and moves into our, and so someone who's a meditator, because meditation is so difficult to do and understand what is really happening there, that people are very, very susceptible to propaganda. And the propaganda, you need to find, if you're going to listen to someone, then you should not particularly listen to someone working for a corporation who just happens to know a lot about that and is trying to make a living and so on like that. And they're going to tell you what's happening with your meditation practice. You should change this, and if you want to do better, you can get this other app, or get this other kind of device or something. So, you follow me? Yes?
Is the permission we give an illusion?
Again?
Is the permission that we give an illusion?
To who?
To ourselves.
You have to bring it into some kind of context. I follow what you're saying, but some kind of context.
So, like with Facebook,
just as if you were speaking to Junshu. And if it makes you sense to Junshu, then I'll probably understand it. Isn't she your friend?
She doesn't understand what I said.
Well, I was just, the way I could tell whether what you said makes sense or not is to look at her. I go, oh yeah, okay.
Does it change? Does the look ever change?
Oh yeah. There's that one time when you say the really brilliant thing, she goes, whoa.
And you wake up.
Keep coming.
So, the example we're using with like Facebook or something like that, or
Yes.
an app, even if you don't have the account, there's still like parallel accounts that they compile from other people's accounts.
Yes.
So it seems like you have your footprints out there regardless of your permission.
I think that's totally true. Would you say, Andrew, would you say that's true? You don't know? Aren't you the most techie person here?
Doesn't mean I know stuff.
Huh?
Doesn't mean I know stuff.
Oh, it doesn't mean you know stuff. Okay. Yeah, you have been meditating for a while, so you're getting closer and closer to not knowing anything. So, go ahead.
So the question was about the permission. It seems like the permission just makes us feel better about that kind of situation that we don't really have a say-so in.
Okay, well, specifically, and maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're asking, but I'm saying that you, when you're training your mind, when you're meditating, to keep that material away. And then when you're done, and go ahead and use your smartphone and just be aware of, it's hard to say. I mean, there's so much going on behind the scenes, so to speak. It's hard to know what's happening there with smartphones or Facebook or Instagram or Google, or it's just huge. I don't know, but at least protect the area where you're training your mind to see clearly. More? Is that what you're asking about? Yeah, because I don't know. I kind of say, yeah, it's hard to know who's tracking who on there. It's hard to say what's actually happening. Doesn't look too good. Any further questions? Very good, thank you.
We'll stand and dedicate the merit in the back of our red chant books. I'd just like to remind everybody about the donation boxes that we have in the hallway. We certainly appreciate your financial support. Our website is back online again, so we happily can receive donations in that manner as well, through PayPal or debit credit cards, or checks in the mail and cash too. Thank you.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. San Shi Shi Fu Shi Son Bu Sa Mo Ko Sa directions, the three worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita.
O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokuzan Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.